Monday, April 18th. We just had a big weekend. Moonbirds came out and pretty much crushed the market. So, what's going to happen coming forward? We'll talk about that today. Welcome. So, Tyler, I guess initial reactions. The Moonbirds came to fruition. It was a wild weekend. It seemed like most of the market was focused on Moonbirds, but what's your initial reaction from that?
I think it's one word. It's euphoria for anyone who took part in the Moonbirds mint or traded, got into the set at all Saturday or Sunday. It was just pure euphoria all weekend long. I mean, we've never seen anything like this. We had really high expectations coming into this drop. As you know, we've been talking about this project for what feels like months now. It was a lot to live up to, and then I think it smashed through all those expectations. So it was just an awesome weekend to be actively trading in this project.
Yeah, and it was something that we talked about previously. Do you know what the lowest it got to? Is it in the sixes? I forget if it ever got into the sixes. I know I was watching when it was around 7.5, but I definitely don't think it got into the fives.
No, so I have to send a shout out to my wife. I'm very grateful. She let me just actively monitor and trade this Saturday on Easter weekend. But yeah, I was glued to my computer for those first, I'd say 3-4 hours, right after the pre-sale mint started, really all the way through the morning. So I was actively following the market. I saw people tweeting about getting some 60 prints, but honestly, I don't really remember it ever falling much below 7. It came out, it was kind of trending in that 8 to 10 range, and then it started going down. That's when a lot of the folks I was chatting with, like, should we just walk away and kind of, come back? Let's see. It looks like this is going to maybe potentially slowly fall, like some people were kind of calling for. And then it rebounded, and everyone kind of got back in.
Yeah, and it kind of traded in that 8 to 10 range for a while, I'd say. And I kind of did what you mentioned, like at one point I sort of like walked away, and then when I came back, it was like 12.5. And then when you look the next time, it's 18. And it just it really ran on Sunday, which I thought that was a little more surprising, just because with the holiday there, I would have thought people would be less actively trading, but I guess maybe that was part of less people listing or something along those lines. But why do you think it had that somewhat of a lag? Was it just people now realizing, oh yeah, this is a real thing?
Yeah. So I think the big question is, where did all this money come from? And we still don't have the data on that. It definitely feels like there was money that came from outside of our traditional NFT ecosystem. So kind of how the price action went, it started running Saturday night. I think it got up to like 14. We woke up Sunday. It had fallen back to kind of 11, 12. And kind of my general gut headed into this was it was going to be the fastest product to 10 ETH, and it would probably kind of sit, chop around 10 or so. I think a lot of folks thought that way. And then it just started running on all day Sunday. And there was just these different periods of time where it was 2 to 3 sales per minute, every minute. And then, I mean, I'm looking at the numbers now. It's traded 69,000 ETH in 50 hours. That's 1,400 ETH per hour for the entire weekend on average. So basically, it just never really stopped. Anytime the buys stopped, the floor started kind of falling a bit and retracing. But really, even until it basically ran until midnight last night, midnight Eastern or so, is when I think it finally stopped being multiple sales, per minute or so. I think it peaked to like 22, I think 23 roughly was the peak last night. It feels, it seems like it's VC money, outside money. I think VC money is kind of the term that people use, and they may not necessarily know. But this type of liquidity, we've never seen anything like this. It smashed the single day record, which was, I think Mutants had traded 41,000 ETH in a day. I think I saw a chart that Punks actually did 45,000 on that full nuclear day on that huge sweep, and then the Moonbirds did like 51,000. So just an insane amount of liquidity.
Yeah, and I think what's kind of crazy about it is when we were talking last, there was only 30,000 people that they said were in the raffle originally to get the Moonbirds, and then you wonder there was about 7,500 people that won that raffle. They bought. How many of those people sold? And then it seems like that 30,000 number might have been low. That'd be a cool sort of statistic to find, but yeah, it seemed like this was just the main focus for people. Some were beforehand, we were sort of speculating that people were holding money on the side and waiting for this to make those actionable plays, and I mean, we saw that. I think the instant reveal was pretty big for that, because it allowed for big sales. We saw it was 3 or 4 sales over 100 ETH. There was a lot of sales over 50 ETH. So, do you think the instant reveal was pretty bullish for them? I think so, personally.
Absolutely. I mean, without an instant reveal, you're essentially just trading fungible tokens, right? And a big part of these markets that can pull the floor up is when you see those high-end sales. So when people see those and we get action on the top end and in the mid-tier, it can really pull everything up. And also, I think a lot of people responded well to the traits, and there's a lot of fun traits in the set. There's a lot of mid-tiers on these. They've hinted that each of the traits could have their own specific utility, and they kind of confirmed that over the weekend. Like there's the hoodie up trait. They essentially confirmed that all those who have nested the hoodie ups are going to get some type of special edition hoodie. So when people have extra incentive to go shopping in the mid tier, they're doing that. So this is all things that were only possible based on the instant reveal.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it shows somewhat of like they knew what market they were getting into. Sometimes these more celebrity types will come out and just create a project, but it seems like Kevin Rose, Ryan Carson, that they thought about a lot of these details. As you mentioned, there's a Zelda trait which is trading at a higher floor, and I think some people are expecting it to be connected to some sort of game, and I think just in general, as you're showing now, these higher end sales, the higher end sales are what give people a lot of confidence in general. So, based on the given traits, we have, that glitch trait, which they had mentioned about, but I think the squiggle, the chromie squiggle, that was a trait people were talking about a little bit of a little homage back to the art blocks, and just in general, like showing that they understand what's going on in NFTs, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's ties into the proof set, so we've got the Grail trait here with the gold chalice over the head. The Proof Collective did their Grails drop where they had some of the best generative artists and other artists come in and do limited edition NFTs for their members, which was like an average of like 3 to 5 ETH per proof owner. So there's some speculation on that, but clearly this was marketed just so well. I think what was almost the most telling signal to me on Saturday was the capitulation from Fudders. So right out of the gate,
Yeah.
some big name influencers were saying things like, "Oh, I'll buy this at 5 ETH," or we're just totally funding it, saying, "I can't believe people are paying this much for pixelated owls."
Their influence didn't bring it down enough.
And then fast forward 4 hours later, and they're all showing off their 4 to 5 bird sets. So it kind of goes to the principle in NFTs is that you need to be able to change your mind quickly when new information is presented. And I think the new information that was presented on Saturday was the liquidity that was coming for this set. Clearly there were a lot of buyers. The buying action wasn't stopping, and I think that changed some people's minds. I think now we'll see. We're still only 2 days in. So is everyone just going to sit here and try to flip these ahead of nesting, or are people in for the long term? I think that's now the next big question.
Yeah, and I think at this dollar level, it's more likely that you'll find people willing to hold as well. There's a question in chat on, a lot of the proof holders got 2 of these, and anecdotally, the proof holders that I knew weren't rushing to sell these. I know you have the proof up on there, and so proof dipped into the 70s, but it's fired back. It's already back up to this 97, and the number of holders is back to that 930 number. So why do you think people are just that much more confident about proof because of a successful Moonbirds launch?
I think this is the most shocking thing that happened this weekend. So for those who weren't following, proof got up to what was low 90s before
I think 93 might have been the
Moonbirds mint. We knew everyone who owned a proof pass was going to get 2 free mints. I think in general we were saying it was about 10 ETH equity per, so we kind of expected the floor to drop by 20. It did. It dropped to 68 ETH, almost right off the gun. So pretty in line with what you'd expect. What we didn't expect is that it would get bought back up. And I think this goes to show kind of the diamond hand nature of this set. But we only saw 8 buys. So buys at 66, 70, 78, 80, 82. And then we saw 2 buys at 100 last night. So this is a true 97 ETH floor here. I mean, we've seen buys at this level in the last 24 hours. It just goes to show how much people believe in Kevin Rose and the team after this drop. I think the big open question now in my head is how are they going to differentiate utility on proof versus Moonbirds? I mean, the expectations for Moonbirds utility is so high now with a 20 ETH price point on day 3 here.
Yeah.
That utility is going to be huge. And then how will the proof owners be able to be benefited even more than that? I think is the question.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see because, it's somewhat easy to appease 930 people, but when you have thousands of people who now have a 20 ETH asset, and I think there's their own Discord, their own channel for Moonbirds, but it's not as inclusive. So you're not getting as much of that. Oh, you're buying proof for the alpha and their connections. Now you have to spread that out tenfold as far as being able to appease that many people. So I think that's the hard part. And I think also why you'd expect there to be somewhat of that gap between the 2 prices. Do you expect Moonbirds to come back maybe towards 12 to 15 ETH then?
Yeah, so I've been playing out so many scenarios in my mind. I think the short-term bearish scenario is a retrace to about, let's say, the 12 to 15 level. At this point, I would be surprised if it goes much below that. Mainly just because every dip that we've seen has just been bought up within a few hours, really. The only way that's going to happen is if the buy pressure just totally dries up, which is possible if everyone who came in to build their positions has already built their position and now they're fine. And then we start to see, some new dominoes fall this week with some new project dropping and some reveals. But I'll be surprised at that point if it drops that low. I think there's a question in the chat: why are people so bullish on proof? I think bullishness on Kevin Rose. Certainly, we talked about that. I think there's also just a pure multiple metric at play here. The Moonbirds floor is 20 ETH. People see proof as only 5x that. with 10% supply, a lot of folks think the proof should be 10x the Moonbirds floor. Just using simple supply numbers and math, so that this should be valued at 200 ETH. I think there's people who are buying simply for that reason, whether that's right or wrong. It is interesting to see that the ratio is 5-1, which is what BAYC to MAYC has held, is what the Azuki Bean ratio has held. It seems to be kind of the magic ratio in NFTs. I don't know if that's all just a coincidence.
Yeah.
But that ratio is clearly out there. I think that's another reason we've seen some buys.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, for one reason or another, are comparing this to the mutant apes, which I don't think you necessarily have to, but I mean, they're kind of slotting them in that range for price is why I think that it's in that 22 now. It's hard to say that Moonbirds are better or worse than something like an Azuki that's also in the similar range. But yeah, I don't know. I guess let's sort of look at what that means for the rest of the market, because as of now, this graph basically shows what we expected, or what we were thinking, where people were holding their liquidity for this event. And it sort of goes back to an article that Logan does for Lucky Trader about being like medium board. And so people, some were shouting that it's bear market, this, that. Others were sitting waiting for Moonbirds. And that's your way to attack at the market. So do you think now that Moonbirds is somewhat out of the way, will we trend back towards the last week where we were at? Or will it be back towards that sort of bump in the middle there at the end of March?
My view is up only, baby. I think we are headed into bull cycle wave 3. I think bull cycle 1 last August, bull cycle 2 this past January, February. I mean, this weekend we did 300 million. I think today was going to be really telling. We're already over 100 million traded with 7 hours to go, so we're on pace for a 150 million plus day here today. I think what's most telling to me is that the money appears to be rotating. And we've seen 2 examples of that here in the last 24 hours. So the Murakami flowers traded 10,000 ETH in the last 24 hours. I mean, in any other normal day, that's number 1 by a landslide. And then the mutant apes, for anyone who's been following the market this morning, are on fire. They marched from 26 to 29 the last I checked, and I don't have the exact floor in front of me.
I think that's one thing that we noticed in this weekend is the people that were trying to FUD Moonbirds the hardest were those that are ape holders. And it's their way of being like, oh, well, why do they deserve it? But then people come back and they're like, why do apes deserve it? And it's kind of been an interesting battle, like on Twitter with that side of it, where, they're getting pretty defensive about it, because now people saw, well, going back to a sort of a separate point, the Cooltopia launch. And once it launched and didn't work perfectly, now all of a sudden those assets start crashing a little. So now sort of the narrative that people are coming out with is Yuga Land is going to be bad and it's going to actually crash that market. So do you think that some of this push is from people being concerned about what's going to happen with apes?
I think that concern is out there, and it's the right risk response. First, to address the FUD between NFTs, like there's clearly so much tribalism in the NFT space right now. It's ridiculous. Yeah. I think the concept that people need to understand is a rising tide lifts all boats. You should want all the NFT projects to moon, because it's generating more revenue for everyone. And in general, we know how NFT market participants are. The money always rotates around or rotates down. So just because you don't have a Moonbird, like, you should be rooting for it, because there are plenty of traders and flippers who are in that set who are likely going to move into your project down the line. So I just want to get that out there. Now, is BAYC at risk? I think the answer is yes. And the reason is Yuga has delivered just so much value to them that as soon as there is, a launch that doesn't live up to expectations or is diminishing returns, we could see some rapid fallout there. I mean, if we think about the equity that BAYC mentors have been given at this point, right? The dogs are 7 ETH, the mutants are 29 ETH. Then they got what was it 30 to 50K, 50 ETH airdrop at one point, depending on when they sold it.
Yeah.
So I mean, every airdrop has just gone higher and higher. Yuga Land isn't going to be that much for BAYC owners, right? And now the elephant in the metaverse room is Punk 6529 launching in the open metaverse, which is going to be free. And he's one of the biggest personalities, one of the most well and widely respected individuals, anons in this space. It puts a real question on the pay to play metaverses versus free and open. And he was kind of attacking Moonbirds a little bit this weekend. It wasn't enough, clearly. I'll be curious if he also draws some parallels from the open metaverse to the Yugaverse here ahead of their paid mint.
Yeah, I think one thing that's sort of interesting now is, Q1, everyone was talking about what's the game that's going to come out as like the top game. And I think right now it's like people are turning to metaverses, creating their own metaverses to sort of beat Sandbox and Decentraland, I guess, in a way. It seems like that's where a lot of these projects are shifting because they found out games are hard to make, they're expensive, and sort of this new narrative is to make a metaverse. And I just don't know if there's that many people trying to get into metaverses, and the ones that are might already be part of things like the NFT world, World Wide Web. I'm not sure if that's going to necessarily attract new new investors or those current investors that are out there.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I mean, the current PFP arc right now is basically everyone following the Yuga blueprint, which is companion, expand the set to 20K, with your mutant type drop, World of Women Galaxy, however you want to do it, beans, and then metaverse. That's the 3-step roadmap. And so far, the price arc is up until metaverse. I think the big open question is, have they topped? And then Yugaverse is on, or the metaverse means on the way down. And we don't know the answer to that. I do think the theme of Bull Cycle 3 is consolidation into blue chips. And I think we're going to see, 3 to 5 products become big winners in this space. We're going to see them be magnets of liquidity. And there's going to be a growing gap between the top end and the mid end. And I think that's my main prediction.
Yeah. And so I guess let's go with this question first, before getting into sort of future mints. But do you think that the people that didn't get a Moonbird will spend that 2.5 ETH on another project? For me, as soon as the money is converted into Dabber Bucks, it's only destined for Moms. I think this translates. So my initial answer to that is yes. I'm the type of person that if you load up a balance and you don't use it on one thing, you're probably going to use it on something else. I did buy into some other things, but what's your take on this?
Yeah, and personally, I can't keep ETH in my wallet. So if there's free ETH, I'm certainly going to be looking. But yes, I think everyone who missed the raffle is certainly going to spend that 2.5 if they haven't already. And I know I would have. But not only them, but everyone who has sold a Moonbird in the last 24 to 48 hours now has somewhere between 8 and 20 ETH burning a hole in their wallet. And we've got
they're coping with the fact that they sold at 8 and now it's 20. So.
There's a lot of cope there, and now the only reaction is, how can I get that back? How can I chase that Moonbird's high? How can I get my next 2 to 3x? And there's some projects out there that present a potential 2 to 3x opportunity. I think that's definitely where we'll see their focus.
Yeah. So let's go into this Murakami drop, because I think there are a few out there Obviously, there's like beans and monolith that we talked about. We'll get into those. But Murakami, they opened up the whitelist yesterday. If you go onto the site, you're able to see if you made it on that list, and they're at it's about 50% have minted so far. I'm not sure if there was a specific date that you had to mint by, but they've been holding well. The lowest I saw it go was about 4 ETH, and there were buyers, but now it's all the way up to about 6.5. So what do you think this Murakami is? This going to be a place that people go for?
Yeah, I mean, clearly it's already been the first big winner of this liquidity boon here. Traded 10,000 ETH in the last 24 hours. And I want to say it really started last night. From what I was seeing on Twitter, the floor was around low fours. Last evening, we woke up, it was mid sixes. Clearly, Murakami is one of the most respected and loved artists in the space, ties to Clone X. So that's a huge market that has incentives for them to do well. So this is definitely one that's going to be a winner. Now 6.5 with about 70% of the supply out. Is it going to hold? Is it going to 2x from here? I think that's a big question. I don't personally know enough about what's this project's roadmap potential utility is. Like, is this just an art project where you're going to get a Murakami flower, or is there more coming down the line? I've heard rumblings of a game of some kind, but in general, we've seen how games perform in this space. So this is one personally where I'd be a little cautious in entering here, but certainly has been a huge win for anyone who's gotten in so far.
Yeah, and I think most of it is just buying off the name, and the success that Clone X has had, the success that Monolith so far has had as far as trading wise. I believe you have a rare lotto with this, so that's part of it. Like, I would expect if you hit a rare, you're probably getting double digits on that sale, probably 20 plus, depending on how rare it is. So yeah, I think this is one of those projects that is off of name, and I feel like that's sort of been the new play as far as like with Moonbirds, like you're going off of the name Kevin Rose. He's got a massive following, over 1 million followers. Murakami has about 300,000 followers, but he's been known as an artist for a while. So I think it's just kind of the name and that Clone X that was attached to it, which is really what's driving this right now. Because I don't think there's a ton of details as far as what is going to happen with this project. I think it's just his project versus Clone X he was an artist for.
Yeah, I think you're exactly spot on. And you made the comparison to Monolith, but that's another product that we know so little about. That's also trading at a similar price point. So, this market trades on anticipation, hype, and attention. And this one's got it right now. That's a fact.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's get into another one that's coming this week, the Akutars. So Accu last week, well, let me go way back, but I think it was a week ago is when they originally did, you had to own one of Micah Johnson's NFTs basically to get on this airdrop list to get one of these Akutars, and they dropped it as a mint pass. So if you owned one of his, even if it was the time or it was one of his chapters, you would get one. But they had a little system set up where depending on like how many of the chapters that you had, you would get a rarer version of these mint passes. So the airdrop came, but then now the next airdrop, if you hold one of these in your wallet on the 22nd, you'll get the actual avatar based on the rarity. But they're also doing a public sale for the rest of the 6,000. So what has been your thoughts on this project so far?
So I've been a little confused about how this whole airdrop has worked. So I want to start there. It definitely isn't the easiest to follow. So at this point, Is it just the Mint Pass holders who are going to get
Yeah.
a free Mint at this point? Because I see there's another snapshot coming up on April 21st.
Yeah, so basically how it worked is the snapshot on the 7th, there was 9,000 people, 9,337 I think was the number, right?
Mhm.
9,000 got airdropped the Mint Pass, but you had to hold the Mint Pass until the 21st to actually get the avatar. So people are trading a Mint Pass right now,
Got it.
but they have 3 sets of rarities. So the floor one is trading at whatever that is, 2.5. But then the rarer ones are trading at a higher level because you're guaranteeing a rarer avatar. I think one thing people don't realize is there's that much more supply coming.
Mhm.
So it's 2.7 ETH right now. They're going to do it as a Dutch auction on the 22nd. But all those 99,000 as of now will just get airdropped the avatar for holding it.
Right.
And then the rest they're doing this Dutch auction on the 22nd.
And we don't know the details for the Dutch, right? But I would assume it's going to
No,
be. It's got to
they're
start
saying
higher than
modified
the.
Dutch.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
assuming it's going to be higher than the Mint Pass, right? Um,
so that's
we'll
what I
find
wasn't
out.
sure if the modified meant, um, or if it was one of those like it's starting at half. Because what I would expect, here's like the somewhat issue with it. They have what's that? 28 hours after the snapshot is when this Dutch auction is.
Mhm.
So people could just dump after that 21st.
Well, the Mint
Um,
Passes will be worthless, essentially,
right.
right?
That's what I mean. So like that they're gonna dump those. So yeah, I guess it's probably gonna create a new collection
Mhm.
of the avatars themselves.
And then what those are
Um,
trading at will be.
yeah,
We would assume it would be the same level, like it'll be 2.69 or 2.7. Actually, you would expect it to drop because there's some rare lotto baked into that. Um,
yeah. And there's what's that say, 5750 uh added to the supply as well. So yeah, maybe around two or so. It's interesting because it was sitting under 1 ETH for a bit, and then they announced some collaborations
mhm.
that increased it. Um, and that's when it really shot up to like 2, and then over the weekend, it shot up a little more.
I'm gonna see if I can find the collab news. They've got some huge names coming into this. Let's see if I can find the article. I might have missed it.
Yeah, I think I saw scroll up a little bit.
It's Billionaire Boys Club. It's ice cream. Puma is in the mix.
There,
Um,
that one in the
yeah,
middle.
here's an example of some of the mock-ups that we've already seen here.
But I think that was the one that had, did it not? Well, they're gonna use the Unreal Engine as
Mhm.
well, which going back to what we were saying earlier, like if they go down the game route, is that gonna be good or bad? I think the film TV is probably good for them, but I'm not sure. And this is another artist that grouped up with, was it Premint that they grouped up with, or no, AJ Vaynerchuk grouped up with Micah as
Mhm.
well. So Micah Johnson's kind of been out in the news the past few weeks. So I think part of it is he's within a hype cycle right now that is leading people to this project.
Yeah, I think the announcement of the Vayner Sports Passes getting access to a Micah Johnson drop in the future helped move this market actually because that was a pretty big buyer pool that
Yeah.
has some ETH to work with typically with Gary V. But overall, I mean, I think these look great. People really like Micah Johnson as kind of a rising star artist in the NFT space. It's different. The art looks good. He's got plans for the Accuverse. Clearly, he's established kind of a line of connection from artwork to PFPs. So there's some expectation of utility down the line. So I think this has got the makings of one of the highest profile drops of this week, and I think there's going to be a lot of attention on this one.
Yeah, and I think the art somewhat speaks to people. It's unique in its own way. It's got its own theme to it, and in the past, when he's been part of stuff like the time drop, his floor has always been a little higher than some of the other artists. So I think he's a big enough name at this point that people are going to be watching this, and there's not as many high profile projects that are coming out right now. So um, this is definitely one that's high up on my list as well for the week.
Yeah, I mean, this one dips below 2. I think it's going to start being a very attractive play here.
Yeah. So then after this one, so that's going to be towards the weekend, which might be good timing as well. But then the other big drop that people have been waiting for a little bit is this Anata drop that's going to be happening on April 21st. So that's Thursday at noon Pacific, 3 Eastern time. So what's your take on Anata? Because I know we've talked about this a little bit in the past, and it's finally here.
Yeah, I was going back through some of my previous weekly preview posts. I think this was a full 3-week delay. The open question is, will that delay benefit or hurt the Anata project? My take is it's probably going to hurt them, unfortunately. My rationale is this. I think Anata had a whole lot of hype 3 weeks ago, and it was launching at a time where there wasn't a whole lot of other high-profile new drops coming out. The new drop market was pretty quiet. The market's not quiet anymore, and there are some high-profile new projects. There's some high-profile reveals likely taking place this week and around this weekend. So now there's a lot of competition. So on the plus side, it's a very liquid market, maybe the most liquid market we've seen in months. But I feel like some of the hype has kind of died down on this one. So I thought this was a kind of a slam dunk play 3 weeks ago, and I'm much less certain now. But ultimately, everything is price dependent. So This one has that very interesting auction style where it's essentially blind auction bid. You will have an anonymous leaderboard, but you'll be able to see where you're at, and then they're going to accept the 1,920 highest bids at the lowest price, which is an interesting mechanic for sure, and definitely a lot of game theory goes into that. I imagine the board will be pretty active there in that final 60 minutes or so. The bids have to be above 0.25 ETH, which 0.25 is kind of on the higher end of what the market is generally willing to pay for newer projects from teams that aren't quite as established. Clearly there's some innovation in what they're trying to do. That for those who aren't familiar with the project, they're trying to move from PFP to virtual identity, VID. So this is a PFP that you can use, you can download, and it will create essentially a GIF that sits on top of you. So for Zoom calls like this, I could have my avatar up. It would be following my hand motions. You would be seeing my Anata avatar instead of me, which is a cool premise. I think the open question is, how big is the market for anime virtual identities in the NFT space right now?
Yeah, and I think they're not even the first to do it, which I think is not to like call that a bear sign or anything, but I think they're the first that are really pushing that. That's the whole like promise of it, is like it could be you. There's all these other projects that talk about being in the metaverse, and this one is saying like it'll follow your motions and all that sort of thing, versus just like having a Bored Ape walking around in Decentraland or something. So I think that's the big difference here. The Super Nifty has done that. We saw, if you've ever seen D's on a podcast that has video, like he has something similar to this already that's set up on his webcam. But yeah, I think it could hurt them that it took them this long. They pushed it off a couple times, but the thing is, I don't know. There's like not too many big name projects that pop every once in a while, and this one has been one that people have been looking forward to for a while.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Again, on the pro side, this is a great week to launch from a liquidity standpoint. There's a lot
Yeah.
of money in the ecosystem. You know, anime. We might be in anime season 2, right? With some of the other recent drops we've seen with Akuma, Everai, and the other. I'm blanking on it now. So it'll definitely be interesting. I think there's going to be a lot of attention on it, and still, there aren't that many drops per day. There are some high-profile reveals, like I said. Accutar is going to be a huge competitor for them, but there's only a handful of new projects, so that they definitely have a shot.
Yeah. So this is one that I expect there to be chatter around it. It's also going to be on the 21st, which I don't know, like Thursday leading up to the weekend could be good for them, depending on what their drop looks like, if it goes successfully, that sort of thing as well. So that's one that we'll be paying attention to. And then the next one that we were talking about was MEMS. And we're not fully sure on a date on this, right? Yeah. So we don't know which date it is. They are expecting to announce that later today, but they're going to have 6,000 of these MEMS, zero point 0.1 ETH to mint, one per wallet. And this is one that they had about, I think, 1,000 of the spots went to pre-mint pass holders. So pre-mint pass is one that we talked about last week, but what's sort of your thoughts on MEMS? Because I look at this and this is a post that has over 1,000 likes, 400 retweets, 150 comments, and to me, I think this has enough hype around it.
Yeah, so I mean, the engagement looks great. They've got 62,000 Twitter followers, and it's a relatively low mint price. In a market that's seeing a lot more expensive mints, right? So I mean, Accutar is 2.5 ETH to get in the door, most likely. We know that Anata is probably going to be at least an ETH, I would say, to get in. So this is one of the high-profile drops this week at essentially the lowest entry point. So it's going to have that going forward. It's got the tie into pre-mint, which has a rabid base. So that community will be rallying around this. I was reading through their blog. So they don't have a website, but they've got a series of blog posts where they are kind of starting to establish the lore or the story of these MEMS and the voyages they're going on. We don't have a ton of clues, so I feel like there's a decent amount of kind of mystery baked in to what this drop will actually be, which could play to their benefit, right? It's got the element of surprise, and I think they're going to reveal more after the mint. But I expect this one at this price point to have a lot of attention, and we're expecting them to launch this week. They said that on Friday they're going to launch within the next week, so I think we can definitely expect it. And I'm shocked we don't have any 420 mints yet. We haven't talked about anything happening on 420, and that is a huge day for the memes in the NFT space. So I think we can definitely expect something big to happen on 420. Maybe memes will drop that day.
Yeah, I think. Well, to answer that one first, I know that groupies are doing. It's all existing projects, but groupies are announcing stuff with their token and merch on Wednesday, 420. And then they also Starcatchers posted something that said on 420, but they haven't specified what it was. And then the Little Lemon Friends are coming out with their popcorn as well that day. But yeah, I'm surprised more of these, like Anata isn't dropping on that day, or Accu. Like it's almost as if some of these projects were expecting that to be a busy day, maybe. So that's why they stayed away from it. I could see MEMS doing it. One concern I had with this MEMS drop, and just from looking at this poster itself, are too many of these just going to look exactly the same? I haven't seen many things that are showing basically like what this picture is. Like, oh, it's just holding a knife versus that one's not holding anything. This one just has ears. I'm wondering what the traits are going to be like, if there's going to be enough traits to really make these run long term, though.
Yeah, I mean, if we're just going to get a variety of these orange balls with sandals or
Yeah,
flowers or knives in their hand, I don't think this has much upside.
at that
Um,
point, yeah.
so I am curious, uh, you know, what the artwork behind this is going to be. I mean, I'm looking at the Earth in the top right here, and it's giving me Cool Pet vibes. Uh, it looks like the cool eggs. Uh, in some capacity. So no, I think
Yeah.
you're spot on there, and that's going to be the big question. The reveal on this is going to be, in my opinion, the driver of if this has legs and can march up, or if it's going to trend to zero.
Yeah. And then we have a comment in chat about Alex might be dropping the secret project on 420 as well. So you could see that. He's got a pretty big following. Secret Project, that account itself only has about 3,000 followers, but yeah, that they're expecting that Secret Project 1.1, as they're calling it, to come out on Wednesday. So that could be one to look forward to. If you're itching to buy on that day and try to get in. But I could see something popping up last minute. I could see maybe the memes does a drop then. I think there'll be plenty of stuff going on this week. And who knows? Maybe Monolith is supposed to be getting out to this week. Maybe that's a good transition into that. So we had this post earlier today. The final quest is today, ending. I guess it's ending in an hour. Yeah, that's an hour from
Starts.
now. Oh, it's starting in an hour.
Yep.
So the monolith quest is starting in an hour here, and they also are hinting at the monolith being open this week. So what's your thoughts here? Because they've kind of been hinting at it for a while.
Yeah, so we've got 2 months of lead up ahead of this, but it looks like we've got confirmation. This is going to finally reveal this week. So once the final quest is completed, they're promising the monolith reveal. Benito here is saying that he expects that the final quest will take less than a week. That's not confirmed. Basically, that's what the timeline is tied to here. Um, what was interesting here, so there's been some hints about what this is actually going to be. But he dropped some alpha here in this tweet. I'll just read it. It's not like anything dropped into space so far. While it comes from the future, it has a legacy element. It's an innovation drop, not an NFT drop. I have to say that last sentence there gave me some uneasiness as a monolith owner. First, I think everything Artifact has done has been pretty much a slam dunk. Certainly, the Nike acquisition has been a big part of the CloneX market, kind of moving up to the levels it's at. They are great at creating demand. On the flip side, this market expects utility in the form of new NFTs, of things that can be traded for money, essentially. We saw how Space Capsules was an innovative drop for Doodles, but pretty much flopped and impacted the Doodles market for 4 weeks. So I think there's now some risk into what this actually is going to be. But I think what's also interesting in additional rumors is apparently in the testing, people kind of watching what's going on behind the scenes. They're thinking that the monolith reveal is going to give back 3 NFTs, one in ERC 721 and then 2 1155s. So that's interesting. And if that is the case, that 3 are given back, I think that'll likely be received well. But ultimately, we still don't really know what this is going to be. So I think once we finally know, it's going to move the market one way or the other. It's either going to drop considerably or it's going to 2x, and I don't think there's much in between.
Yeah, I think sort of when these projects come out and say that they're doing something that's innovative, a lot of times that doesn't work out the way that I think they expect it to. We've seen this happen with a couple different projects, but it's almost like if you overthink it and try to do something that's like cool tech side, a lot of people aren't that interested in the cool tech side. So that has hurt projects like Creature World
Mm-hmm.
when they do like innovative stuff versus stuff that people want. So it'll be interesting. I think there's going to be something connected to Nike with it because they have it on the box. Like I think that side of it is probably likely. If it's something that is just metaverse clothing or shoe line or something like that, I don't know if people are going to get that excited about it. So, um, personally, like there aren't that many of the monoliths that get listed at a given time.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like the people that are holding them are very interested in what's in there or have their own thoughts. So I think that'll be interesting to see. Maybe this will happen on Wednesday. Like that. The thing is anything going to happen today or tomorrow, or are people still trying to wait for Moonbirds to sort of sizzle off a little bit?
No, I mean the market's not moving. I mean the mutant apes, they're running, and I think we haven't touched on it yet, but I think we're going to get a Yuga announcement this week. Um,
Hmm.
it could be 420. April 23rd, I believe, is the 1 year anniversary for BAYC. I would be shocked if we don't get some type of announcement on the anniversary. Whether that's going to be, we're launching Yuga Land in 12 hours, or just an announcement of when it might be, or a total curveball or surprise. I mean, the Yuga founders were smart. They're already seeing chatter out there that Kevin Rose in the proof team is coming for Yuga. Um, I think that it's competition is good for the space. I think it's going to kind of force their hand, and maybe they're kind of back in the lab, so to speak,
Yeah.
working on some new twists. They didn't like that the roadmap for 2022 got leaked clearly, so maybe there's some surprises up the Yuga founder sleeves. That wouldn't
Yeah.
shock me at all.
Yeah. And then obviously beans are still out there. TBD. They had that Epic High, the concert, um, that some people were wondering if this is what the leak is or not. The sort of evil Azukis that were part of the show itself at Coachella. Obviously, they had that somewhat issue with Bobu getting launched, so I could see something popping with Azuki this week. As I don't want to. It's not like they're forgotten or anything, but it does seem like they've lost a little momentum because Moonbirds came in, and then some people aren't very happy that beans are out there for now 3 weeks basically, and people still don't have information on it. Like you wonder, are they still trying to figure out on their end as well what they want to do with it? So they're also a team that I could see dropping something on 420 because the haha of the day.
Yeah, I think we're all a little. Everyone in the Azuki community, I'd say, is a little surprised we haven't heard more. So right out of the
Yeah.
gate with Beans, right? They had the metadata changes. It was the airdrop, and then it was the pile of dirt, and then it turned into the beans. That all happened fairly rapid fire. It was all within a
Yeah.
matter of days. And now it's been a little bit more radio silence. We thought there would be an announcement at Coachella. It didn't happen. Quick side note: I do think the Azuki collaboration with Epic High was really cool. I think they're one of the first brands to really get mainstream in this capacity through music and fashion, and certainly
Yeah.
Coachella is a fashion festival. And I think that's in line with the vision and strategy for Azuki's to be kind of a fashion NFT brand, with their streetwear. I think we saw some previews of their streetwear from Coachella. Um, I really hope we get a reveal this week. We're going to be coming up on 3 weeks. Thursday is 3 weeks from
Yeah.
the airdrop. You said it. It's impossible to keep momentum in this space without announcements or reveals. So if there's no news this week, I would expect Beans to probably do a slow dip as we see some other headlines popping up.
Yeah. So yeah, basically that's some other stuff to keep in mind. It's still out there. Um, maybe when we come back on Thursday, we'll have something on that. I think Thursday should be a good show because I think the information between now and then we're gonna have a lot more information on this stuff. Um, Especially with like Monolith now that they've basically announced that it's going to be this week. We'll be able to hopefully talk about that. Mems will hopefully be dropping then, and then the Akutars, they're going to be there. Anata. So yeah, hopefully Thursday's kind of building up to be a good show as well. Last Thursday was fun with all the Moonbird stuff, and then obviously going into that weekend. So I think if they can carry this momentum of just volume in general on OpenSea, then that bodes well for these projects that are trying to come out this week.
Yeah, I think this week is telling if we're moving into a new bull cycle or not. My prediction is yes, we are. But if we drop back to 50 million today, then it might spell some trouble.
Yeah.
But I think we've got some good vibes and some nice tailwinds here.
Yeah. And as we were talking about earlier, there's some people that have a little more funds in their wallet that, maybe we saw some of that with the mutants, why that's getting run, because people that maybe had a couple of the burrs and now they have enough for a mutant, they're switching into a mutant. Or just in general, people are trying to find the next thing that they can maybe not 10x the same way that you were able to if you minted a Moonbird. But I do think people, now that they have some money in their wallets, maybe push some aside for taxes. Now taxes are basically done. Push some aside for that, or push some aside to a ledger, and then you have still money to play around with and try to find that next thing. So hopefully, if you're listening and watching, you maybe figure it out on your own which ones you would be interested in getting into. Um, as I mentioned, like I think a lot of these still have some more details that we'll find out. But yeah, and I'm excited for this week. I hope that come Thursday we still have these positive vibes that came through the weekend. So
Me too. I think we're gonna have a big week,
cool.
Lou.
All right. Well, yeah, thanks for watching. If you're here and listening in on what we had to say, we'll keep you guys updated. Hopefully some of this stuff will have full details by Thursday. We'll be back on Thursday with the Lucky Trader Lounge once again to talk about what happened in the week, that we basically just tried to outline what we expect. So hopefully you'll come back on Thursday and drop us a like. Let us know in the comments if you have something that you're interested in learning more about that we haven't talked about today. And then we'll catch you guys on Thursday.